All right, folks. Okay, so this is Daniel, DJ, speaking about a trade tree which I started in season, I don't remember, 83 possibly. It was the Alex Johnston trade tree, which involved Helsinki on one side and Calgary on the other. Johnston at the time was, I think, a sophomore player for Calgary. Helsinki was rebuilding, they were looking for new prospects, and they wanted to get rid of veteran Gastislav Nasherov. So the two GMs, I think it was Razor on Helsinki's side and Reiser on Calgary's side. This trade theory is still alive. Both franchises have changed their GM in the interim, with Sam for Helsinki and Leandro on Calgary's side. And it's not done yet. There are still some assets which are still active, whether they're picks or players. And yeah, I've updated this trade tree a couple of times, but I thought I'd make a podcast now because I'm too lazy to write. So there you go. Let's start with Helsinki. And I start at the left-hand side with Alex Johnston. Now, Alex Johnston played for about 2 seasons, or parts of 2 seasons, for Helsinki before he was traded on to Riga. Alex Johnston played 122 games, 93 goals, 101 assists. Disclaimer, this is all as before draft day in S95, plus all the stats are regular season as well as playoffs combined. I didn't bother to separate them. It would be an even more humongous spreadsheet than it already is. So yeah, and of course I do not claim that it will be error-free. If you find something which sounds wrong to you, please let me know. So Helsinki got Alex Johnston, S81 from first round pick from Los Angeles, and the second round pick of the same year also from Los Angeles. Let's wrap this up. S81 second round pick. Helsinki selected Janet Snakehole, which never made it out of the VHLE and retired prematurely. Never played a game for Helsinki. Alex Johnston was then later flipped to Riga, or traded to Riga, I'd rather say, for Jolly Green Giant, who played 22 games, 11 goals, 10 assists before retiring. They got also the S83 third round pick from Los Angeles, which they used on Hunor Soljon. Never played for them. He entered free agency. Veterans of the league will remember that there was some, I wouldn't say inactive, but questionable GMing in the early mid-80s by Helsinki. So I guess because Hunor Soljon was active-ish, he later signed for London, won a Continental Cup with them. Played a full career and recreated even. So there you go. They got also the S84 first round pick for Riga, which they flipped. They never used it. The player picked ultimately was Sex Justice, which was of course drafted by Calgary, won a Continental Cup with them. Now the S84 first round pick from Riga, they bundled with Erland Jokinen, who played 1 season with them for 78 points total. And their 4th round pick in '84 to Calgary for the S85 2nd round pick of London, which was used on Jani Karppinen, however not by Helsinki, by somebody else. Yeah, probably Calgary. They got the S85 2nd round pick from Calgary, which they used in Vinny Lecavalier, who played 1 season for them and entered free agency. I think he played at one stage for Calgary. And they got the S86 1st round of Calgary, which later on was used for Lachlan Summers, Davos's franchise goalkeeper in the late 80s, early 90s. Yes, so they also got. Where do let's finish this one. It's so easy to get distracted, I swear. So the S85 2nd round pick from London was bundled together with Riga's 3rd round pick in S84, which was later on used for Taylor Crabb. These 2 picks were traded for the S83 2nd round of New York's. They picked Darren Nesbitt. Helsinki used that picked Darren Nesbitt, who played 151 games, 20 goals, 62 assists. They traded Nesbitt together with the S86 1st round pick acquired earlier from Calgary, with Darren Nesbitt and their own 2nd round pick of S86, which was later on used for Adam Rage, to Davos for. This was a three-way deal. I only list up what Davos and Helsinki did. Calgary was also involved. Calgary got Carl Pedersen for that backup goalkeeper. Yeah, so Davos got the S86 1st round pick from Davos, which was later on used to pick Wang Kerr, who recently retired and recreated. They got the S86 3rd round from London, which they used on Antonio Marchand. Never played a game for them, entered free agency. Don't know where they ended up. S86 4th round of New York, which they used for Suhaib Hussain, who never played for them, retired early. S87 3rd round from Calgary, they picked Neil Mahoney. Neil Mahoney never played for them, ended free agency. I haven't followed where they ended up. They got also S88 3rd round pick from Davos, which was later on used for Periwinkle, however not by Helsinki. And they got the S88 3rd round from Calgary, which was used to pick Robert Boldy, again not by Helsinki, because they flipped it. And they flipped it for Marcel Janser, my brother. He played 22 games for 2 goals, 8 assists. Marcel has had a very, very defensive build because he was not a max earner. Very reliable depth defender. They bundled him together with S89 2nd round Riga pick, who was later used for Foster Bedouir. And they sent Marcel to Vancouver for Ryushi Sakamoto, who played 30 games, 0 goals, 7 assists. Nick McMuffin, I don't think. Yeah, well, I need to check. Nick McMuffin, I think he never played for Helsinki. S89 Warsaw 2nd round pick, which was used for Celis Pereira. Oh no, sorry. They only got Ryushi Sakamoto for that pick. I'm feel sorry for Marcel and this pick. They got Ryushi Sakamoto, who played 30 games, 0 goals, 7 assists. Marcel went to Vancouver, never played a game for them. They traded him on to London the same season, and Marcel won a back-to-back Continental Cup, the first in S87 with Calgary, with me, together in the same team. Then he was traded to Helsinki. Helsinki used him for 22 games, flipped him to Vancouver. Vancouver never used him. They flipped him directly to London, and Marcel won 2 back-to-back Continental Cup. So they flipped Marcel to Vancouver for Ryushi Sakamoto. He played 30 games for them, 0 goals, 7 assists. He was bundled with Nick McMuffin and the 2 picks I already mentioned. One ended up being Salis Pereira, and the other one was Toronto's second round pick in S90, which was Rory's player 36 times W, which makes it probably 72 U's. Of course, he's the goalkeeper of New York, so this pick was used then by New York. So they traded these to New York for Mellon Mallard. He played a season for them for 67 games, 5 goals, 39 assists. And Winnie Detroit, who played 20 games with them, 8 goals, 0 assists, and retired as a Helsinki player. So now, where were we? It is so difficult to keep track of. So, yeah. So the second round pick of Riga, S84, they flipped. Jack the Ripper was ultimately picked, together with Magnus Verlander and Cameron Elsby, to Los Angeles for Florida Man, who has named a trophy in the VHLE after him. He played for 223 games, 93 goals, 103 assists, and tested free agency thereafter. So I'm sorry for jumping back and forth. It's so difficult to follow one train of thought. So Mellon Mallard was then traded to Malmo for Bob Robb, who played 53 games, 5 goals, 18 assists. The S90 London second round pick, who was used for Tommy Sleeves, who so far played 324 games, 29 goals, 77 assists, is still part of the Helsinki Titans. And S91 third round pick of Malmö's, they used to pick Alexander Casanova, but they retired early, so this is the end of this bit. Then they traded Bob Robb after what looks like one season or part of one season, plus their second round pick in S91, which was ultimately used to pick Olumide Andersson, to Moscow for Hamar Voss, who played 44 games for them, 17 goals, 32 assists before retiring. And they also got the S92 Moscow third round pick. However, this was never used. The draft was pretty shallow. So let's go back. These were all things which all came from Alex Johnston. So yeah. So I think this one we had covered. This one is the next one. So S86 first round pick, which was ultimately used for Wanker, was flipped to Vancouver for the S86 first round pick, which ultimately ended up to be Leonard Triller, and the S86 second round pick of Toronto's, which ultimately was Darius Morimoto II. Helsinki never used these picks, they flipped them. The first one they bundled together with the S87 second round of Calgary, which ended up to be Gronkel standing you up, and the S88 third round pick of theirs, which ended up to be Anthony Simmons, to London for Rick Grimes, who played 473 games for 98 goals, 204 assists, and retired as a Helsinki Titan. So this is finished. Then we have the S86 second round pick of Toronto, which they bundled together with their S88 second round pick, which was used for McDonald's Big Mac, to Calgary for the S86 first round of Warsaw, which they used to pick their franchise goalkeeper, Fukarask. Chubis, I think, is the user. He played 445 games for 212 wins, 192 losses, and 41 overtime losses. They traded Rusk to Seattle for Justin Lyon, who played 97 games for them, 30 wins, 57 losses, 10 overtime losses. Matthew Highmore, he's still a prospect of theirs, hasn't played a game for them yet, but is still there. Talamer Dew, who so far played one season for 25 goals, 64 assists, respectable season, I'd say. And the S94 Seattle second round pick, which they used on Cherry Box, which is still in their prospects, but hasn't played a game for them yet. And the S94 Vancouver third round pick, which was ultimately used for Yuki Ishikawa, however not by Helsinki. They flipped it together with the S94 Riga third round pick, which was used for Alex Ovechkin the fourth. And yes, they used 4 times. I know it's wrong, but this is what it is. And these 2 picks were flipped to Moscow for the S94 Malmö second round pick, which they used on Ty Duke. Ty Duke hasn't played a game for them yet, but is still in their prospects. Now, the S88 third round pick of Davos's, which they got in the freeway deal, which was used for Periwinkle, not by them. They bundled together with Reed Johnson, sent it to Malmö for Saku Koivu, Calgary legend here. Probably a trade deadline for 20 games, 4 goals, 7 assists before he retired. So this covers Alex Johnston's branch of the tree, which is still going on. So I think Helsinki got a lot of value for Alex Johnston. So now let's talk about the S81 first round pick of Los Angeles. They used for Watson Power. They never played for them. They bundled it together with Kyösti Karjalainen to Moscow for Nico Pierce, Spartans player. Nico Pierce played 223 games, 128 goals, 137 assists. Very respectable numbers. He entered free agency, and that's it. They also got S83 third round Moscow pick, which they flipped. Eric Fink was ultimately selected. They got They also bundled Eric Fink together with their second round pick in S83 Svatopluk Puck and the S83 fourth round, which was used on Juno Antonen, to New York for Darren Nesbitt. Sorry, I made a mistake. These two. This trade goes this way. I'm sorry for that oversight. And of course, S81, we already addressed that. So now we go to Calgary's side of things. So let's start with the two dead ends. S81 second round pick of Davos that Calgary got in the initial trade was used on Ragnar Hagstrom. Ragnar Hagstrom retired very early because he was a multi. And I think in the 2021 holiday season, there was a plethora of multis. Unfortunately, Ragnar Hagstrom was one of them, so that's it. They also got their own first round pick back in S81. They picked my player, Daniel Janser. He played for 637 games, 345 goals, 463 assists, all in all. Was captain, Hall of Fame player, 8 individual awards. They go pretty much a good value out of this pick, I dare say, if I may say so myself. They also got Gastislav Nasherov, Vats player, very good lad. He played 164 games for Calgary, 112 goals, 111 assists. He was bundled together with Erland Jokinen and went to Helsinki for Bob Chicoine. He played 28 games, 1 goal, 5 assists. Lenny Sanderson and the S83 first round pick of Seattle, which was used on Leandro Gonçalves. He played 482 games for Calgary, 240 goals, 279 assists. Lenny Sanderson was a cap drop, basically. So he was acquired and immediately released by Calgary. He never played a single game for Calgary. They sent Bob Chicoine to Vancouver for Brandon Talker, who played 51 games, 14 goals, 23 assists, retired as a Calgary Wrangler. Yeah, that's the end of that. They also got in the trade which brought them Leandro's pick. They got the S84 second round pick from Helsinki, which was ultimately used on Jimmy McElroy. Calgary never used that. And they got the S84 third round pick of Helsinki, which turned out to be Lorenzo Coberson. He never played for Calgary. He was picked by Calgary. He never played for Calgary, entered free agency because he was semi-inactive at the time. Now the S84 second round pick of Helsinki was bundled together with the first round pick in 83 and acquired the first round pick of New York in the S83 season, or draft rather. Calgary picked Eric Gudbranson, that's Reineck's Entertainment's player. He played 558 games, 113 goals, 396. Now this is only his first time he was with Calgary. He was traded and later reacquired, but for this trade tree, only his first stint with Calgary was considered in these figures. Eric Gudbranson was then traded to Seattle for S91 Warsaw second round pick and the S91 Seattle third round pick. Both of them were not used by Calgary. Calgary bundled the Warsaw pick together with the S91 Prague third round pick, which ended up to be Shonka. The Warsaw pick ended to be Phil Rafe. To Malmö for Malo Mellard, not the first time we see this name. He played one season with Calgary, 77 games, 7 goals, 61 assists. To New York for S93 New York second round pick, which was used by Calgary to acquire Oliver Lou. Has not played a game for Calgary yet, is still in the prospects. S93 New York fourth round pick, which is Van Man Stein. Same story, still in the prospects, never played a game for Calgary yet. The S91 Seattle third round pick, which ended up to be Cesar Monterrey, went to Riga for, and this goes back up here. We will look at this in a second, which means right now. So Leandro was traded to Seattle for Zachariah Lefebvre. They never signed the contract, I believe. Entered free agency, no value for Calgary in that respect. The S91 first round pick of Seattle, which was used on Red Panda, Le Morse's player, and S91 Davos third round pick. Calgary used it on Fickens McGillicuddy, but they never signed or entered free agency, or did not re-sign. So not much initial value for Calgary. However, Calgary then took the S91 Seattle first round pick, bundled it together with Ben McLaughlin, Fraden McGrath, and the aforementioned pick, third round pick of Seattle in S91 to Riga for Katia Gonçalves, Leandro's little sister. She so far played 299 games for Calgary, 107 goals, 150 assists. They got back S92 Calgary second round pick, was used on Loic Trepagoat. I think they never signed the contract, entered free agency. For Anne Saidi St. Louis, 155 goals for Calgary, 65 goals, 62 assists, and the rights on the Frenchman. Frenchman never signed with Calgary, he went somewhere else, I don't know, I can't remember where. This is of course orbiting death player, so Calgary didn't get any value for him. Katia still with Calgary. Sadie St. Louis was traded to Seattle for Seattle's third round pick in the upcoming draft and the fourth round pick in the upcoming draft. So yes, so it's difficult to declare a winner, because if you look at Helsinki, they got a lot of assets from the initial trade. Franchise players like Tommy Sleeves, and of course, where is it? They got the goalie like Fukarask. So they got 2 franchise players, some pretty decent service out of Johnston. Nico Pierce was amazing for them. Florida Man also more than 200 games played. So they got some value, or a decent value from this trade. As I said, 2 franchise players. I'd still give the win to Calgary for several reasons. I tried to be humble and I failed probably miserably. They got a Hall of Fame player. Leandro, franchise player. Catillo Gonçalves had a breakout season this past season, promises to be a franchise player as well. They got decent service out of Sadie St. Louis. They got a franchise player in Eric Goodbranson who holds several records for the franchise. But what for me tips the scales in Calgary's favor, and I really try to be not biased. They won a cup, and three of the players in this trade tree, Gonçalves, Janser, and Goodbranson, they were elementary in that cup run. I think even if I try to be as objective as I can be, I think the win needs to go to Calgary. Whereas Helsinki, they still got service out of the assets they have. The trade is still ongoing on their side. So maybe this will change. If at the moment I would need to declare a winner, I would go for Calgary because they acquired 3 pieces of their cup winning team in S87 with the initial trade, either directly with yours truly or by flipping trading stuff and getting Leandro and Eric in the process. What is also not mentioned, I think, because Erland Jokinen, he was traded to Helsinki and came back. He only played 1 season for Helsinki. I think, if I recall correctly, he was not happy with the management problems there were at the time. So he came back to Calgary, and this is not mentioned on here, but he came back, and I think he retired a Calgary Wrangler, if I recall correctly. So, yeah. This is of course not part of the initial trade tree. This is why it's not mentioned here, but it's just FYI. Yeah. So, yeah, I think it's not wrong to say that Calgary won this trade by the mere fact that, as I said, there were elements acquired which were big contributors to their dominance in the mid 80s, which ultimately led to a long awaited Continental Cup. Yeah, that's it for me. Of course, you can disagree. I mean, what can I do? Not that you don't. And I hope this was of interest to you. Hope you had fun following me through. I'm sorry for some of the missteps I made. It's really an intricate trade tree. Shouldn't be an excuse. I still hope I'll be forgiven for making a dog's breakfast. I'll post the link to this spreadsheet as well together with the podcast, so that you guys can try to follow my ramblings and make sense of the trade tree, because it's a lot of information to unpack. All right. Have fun and cheers.